Guys, I'm telling you, this Anchor app is the best thing ever made for podcasters. This Anchor app is easy to use. All you got to do is sign up. All you got to do is record. All you got to do is upload, write your description, and press publish. And your podcast will be available in about 9 or 10 different platforms. So remember, Anchor, the best place for podcasts. Hey, welcome to another episode of the J.R. Watkins podcast. This is episode 20, I believe. I keep mixing up the episode numbers, but I think this is 20. And in this episode, I have a special guest, which I'm going to introduce to you in a second. But before I do, remember, go get my books on Amazon and Barnes & Noble's Coloring Culture and J.R.'s Hope. Those two books are available. The 1 year anniversary is coming up for Coloring Culture, and 2 year anniversary is coming up for J.R.'s Hope, which is Father's Day. I usually release my books on Father's Day because I am a father, and that means something to me. And the next one will not be released on Father's Day, but it will be later this year. But go get those two books. Change your life. Books can change your life, because if books can change your thoughts, it can change your life. So, without much further ado, after the break, we come back with my special guest. So my special guest today is Krystal Tomlinson. She is a bona fide motivational speaker. I don't know if she go by that name again. She is the president of the PNPYO. I believe they've changed their name to Patriots.
No, actually, Patriots is the young professional arm. The PNPY is like grassroots, 16 years old.
So you're still in these streets?
Yes.
So ladies and gentlemen, without much further ado, help me welcome Krystal Tomlinson! Krystal, what's up?
I'm okay, J.R. I'm doing really good.
I am really happy to have you.
Thank you.
You've been doing amazing things. I love your journey. I can relate to it. I can relate to getting... I saw you were in media, working for somebody. Then you went to corporate Jamaica in another space, working for somebody. Mm-hmm. And then you're like, yo, I don't want to work for nobody.
We're done playing, right? I just want to have more control of my time. And that's really what it came down to. I had a real challenge showing up for my family because of work. Mm-hmm. And I sat down myself one day and asked the question, like, what may I work for? Why am I working? Mm-hmm. And the answer is so that I can take care of my family, so that I'm not putting a burden on anybody else to meet my own needs. And I realized that in the pursuit of this job and this work and this paycheck, I ended up isolating family members and close friends because I did not have time for them. And that quality of life just wasn't cutting it for me. And I think the dynamic of this millennial age is that we get to reassess without feeling guilty. Back in my mom's days, she couldn't do that because society look at you and tell you, you're workless and what you're going to do. You need to go work at the bank. What do you mean you're not going to work at the bank? For us, that sort of beating that you get for being unconventional is not as stinging as it would have been in the 80s, 90s, even early 2000s. So.
You mentioned your mom. Tell me. Let's go back to then. Tell me where you from.
So I was born in Kingston, raised for the first.
Yes,
man.
Person.
Born Victoria Jubilee Hospital.
Jubilee, bounty killer, just a take care of you.
So I was born in Kingston, and my mommy moved to St. Catherine, to Portmore, just when Portmore was getting hold on.
Push. You don't say you should have gone down there with bounty killer like a paint with you. And
Donna
tell the
Jubilee?
people them say.
I want to tell you, I didn't even know he was down there until I saw the pictures after.
Probably bounty killer
I didn't even
feel
know.
like him for go back because him did born down there.
Okay.
I must say, but that's a good thing. But anyway, I digress.
So we moved to Portmore, and I was in Portmore until I was about 14 years old, and then mommy moved to Mandeville in Manchester, and then I stayed there, completed high school.
So you get rich?
No, sir, I never get rich. I was just a troublemaker.
Place in Jamaica.
Let me tell you what the idea was. My mother was trying to ship me off to a boarding school. She said she was going to send me to Westwood because I was such a troublemaker, and she had a difficulty because she was working in Montego Bay, and I was staying with a family friend. She had a difficulty managing and monitoring me and disciplining me while I was in Kingston and she was in Mobay. So, I was in Portmore rather than she was in Mobay. And so she said, you know what? I send you to a country school, that is a boarding school, and you have no other choice but to listen to your teacher them 24/7.
Did it work?
Well, I begged and I bawled and I said I was going to change my life completely. I just don't want to wear a straw hat, Mommy. You know? Because she showed me the picture and I said, Mommy, no, this is too savage, right?
So and that school still wears the straw hat, by the way.
They do. But I mean, as a 14-year-old, how do you countenance your town friends seeing you in a straw hat? It was not compatible.
What do you think that? What happens to the esteem of a child who is forced to conform to this extremely conservative attire every day?
You know why it was so jarring for me? Because my family was not conservative, so it was uncommon for me.
Okay.
Church was so optional, right? You could go for the watch night if you wanted to go, and the layer of decency in my family was really just about how you attired yourself. You can't too naked, but it's not because God says, because it's just a matter of looking appropriate and language. You don't talk to people like they're worth nothing. So my barometer for decency had nothing to do with the Bible.
Hey, listeners, please write that down. That's so beautiful.
So my decency barometer wasn't based in the Bible and watching what other people did. It's just I was raised by largely females, and they had standards for how they carried themselves and how they spoke to people and allowed people to speak to them. So when I see the straw hat and the boarding and I wasn't used to it. Maybe if I was in an ultra-conservative home, it would be a natural transition for me. But it scared me, and she knew it would scare me, right? So after she made that threat, I was closing out third form, and she said, okay, but I'm still going to move you because I'm worried about the company that you're keeping at the school that you're at. And so she moved me to Manchester High. She also quit the job she had in Montego Bay and moved me, my brother, her into a home in Mandeville. We weren't rich. There's a lot that we didn't have, but we didn't know that we didn't have it until we got it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
My aunt was overseas, and every school break she would send us a school bag and a new school shoes. So for children, that's major currency.
Of course.
You don't realize that it's only half of your school fee paid. And you can get set home any minute, but you have a new bag and you have a hush puppy, and so you think that I got this, I'm okay. And then there were days when things started to change, like you notice Mommy stopped buying the gallon bottle of orange juice, and we had no juice in the fridge, it was just drink mix. And then she used to buy chicken, like 3 chicken each time she went to the supermarket, and then it came down to maybe a little tray of mixed parts and some mackerel and sardine. But you had food, you just didn't realize that she was now scaling back, and it took longer, the breaks between going to the supermarket. So if she used to go every 2 weeks, now it's every month, every 5 weeks, so you have to stretch the food a little bit longer.
And you grew in a single parent home?
Single parent
Just
home.
your mom and your brother? Or?
Yeah, just Mommy and my brother. But there was a lot of support that came from her siblings. That's my uncle and aunt. They had gone overseas early in my
What
high
happened
school
with
life.
your father?
Well, that's an interesting story. So when my brother was born, because we had the same father, when my brother was about a year and a half, the relationship dissolved between my mom and my dad. The challenge she was having was just a matter of responsibility. You have 2 children now. There's some things you have to start doing, like a stable job. You can't be hustling, and you can't think a hustle is enough to sustain your family. Issues related to abuse. So I never saw my father hit my mother, but she did express to me that there were days when he threatened to do it. It could be that he had done it and she just hasn't shared it with us. But she said she felt unsafe one day and left and had gone to work. And while she was at work, he called to say that if she followed through and left him, because they were having a dispute, if she left him, she not going to see her pitney them. And when she said she was going to come and pick us up because we were staying by his mother's house at the time, he told her that if she come down there, I'm going to kill her. And she tried to came with the police at one point, and it was a big standoff, came with the police and her mother, and finally she got to take us back.
She told you this story in latter days?
Latter days, after my father had died. So what I loved about how my mother's approach to it was, you never stayed in the house and heard her cuss my father. He never paid a school fee, never bought us a book, a pen, a shoes, nothing at all. But she never ever prevented us from going to see him on summer holidays because he was in Kingston and we're in Mandeville. We were able to speak to him on the phone if we wanted to. By Christmas time, we're down there again. And she never sent us off with a, you gotta look for your workless papa now. Or when we came back, your workless father and I give you nothing. So she never made us feel as though he was a bad person. And it was when he passed away, and by that time we're teenagers now, and we're realizing that, boy, we don't really know much about him, and what happened, why you guys couldn't be together. Maybe if you were together, he wouldn't dead. And she started to explain why it could not be. And I came to respect my mother's approach because I saw how other mothers dealt with being single parents, and they always cussing the child about wanting to see their father, and me not send you down the I'm not send no money, and where you want to see a pitney for you not mind a pitney. My mother didn't do that. So we had a great relationship with daddy, loved daddy, and we were able to harbor no resentment at all about him because she didn't allow that to be the case.
And do you think that inform how you see man and woman relationship, even your own relationships, and how you see people relating to each other now?
Absolutely. As some people might know, my partner has children outside of our relationship, so we don't have a child together. But he has baby mothers that I have to engage with, and because I saw how my mother did not bad talk my father when he wasn't around, and even when he wasn't doing what he was supposed to do, the same standard applies for me, and luckily Moses has that same standard too. So a lot of people don't know, he is a single parent for 3 of his children. The mothers ran off and left him with those 3 children. Yeah, but he takes...
This is Moses Davis being a man.
Right, but he doesn't take
King of
it
the
as...
dancer.
He doesn't take it as a huge form of disrespect for him to be angry at the women. He just raises his children. And there are a lot of people who don't know that he's a single parent, or at least before I came into the picture, for 2 of his younger children. Their mother is out of the picture completely and is just off somewhere else.
Which is not usually the norm. It's usually not the man. And it's the opposite of what you said happened with you.
Exactly. So I'm lucky enough to be in a relationship with somebody who, even if they're left with the entire burden of raising their children, don't walk up and down the house every day and cuss the fact that your mother isn't here. He takes the responsibility of both, does what he needs to do, and if the children are interested in talking to their parents, he doesn't block them from doing that.
Because those messages inform our adult lives.
Yeah.
Which brings me to my next question. What's your first memory of yourself?
Ooh.
First time you remembered that you're a human being and you exist?
The earliest memory I have is when I was by my grandmother on my father's side, on the veranda, because they had a veranda. My grandfather used to sit down on a Sunday and read him Watchtower because they're Jehovah's Witnesses. And my grandma bought there's a Bible storybook that Jehovah's Witnesses have for children. So she had bought that, and what she used to do is allow me and my brother to read the stories. So from Daniel in the lion's den and Samson and Delilah. So I remember Sundays on the veranda, I don't know how old I was, maybe 2 or 3, on the veranda with her and my grandfather reading those stories about heroes in the Bible, because it's pretty much heroic stories about followers of Jesus Christ, / maybe if it's the Old Testament, the Israelites, and not the Israelites, Jews. So that's so funny that you asked that question, because I never thought about it. That's the first memory I have, though, reading that Bible, that book of Bible stories, a big yellow hardcover book.
It was a spiritual experience.
Yeah.
It's usually, most people that ask that question, it's usually either at a party or some interaction where from that moment henceforth, because that's like your foundation of thinking you. That first memory of yourself, is from that you project your entire life. And for most people, it's usually either a spiritual experience or a party, which is the same thing.
Yeah. Music will do that.
You feel good about yourself. And I ask you that because with these relationships that you had with your parents and the ones you're maneuvering now, how much of yourself do you see in other people? in order to help them solve their problems?
Oh, from that basis, a lot. And I connect very deeply with young adults, teenagers, young adults.
That's what I mean. For example, like your high school,
Yeah.
In going to high school, back then you said it bad.
Very.
Now they say kids are bad. Are you able to see that? And in the other situations in your life?
Absolutely. Young, I don't get angry at teenagers for making a boatload of mistakes, because I feel like that is me. When I look at them, that is me. And if you turn it around right now, you can be all that I am and so much more. So it's possible for you to fix it right there. So even the work that I do in terms of mentorship deliberately targets teenagers who are having a difficult time in school, disciplinary problems, academic problems,
what was that
issues.
journey like for you to get to that realization? Did you have to discover more about yourself? What happened?
Actually, what happened was my mother was embarrassed because of something I had done, and I carried so much guilt about it. I said I had to stop doing that. Whenever she came to school, it was like a thing on the block, whichever form I was in, that, Lord Jesus, Krystal, mother, you know what she do. When teachers saw her coming, it was never a smile, it's a frown, because from your CR, you know, say, Krystal, do something, man. Jesus, Miss Reed, you can't get your daughter under control. So my mother never came onto the school compound for anything to celebrate her as a parent. And to know that she was the only person who was putting in the work for myself and my brother, I felt so bad that people...
How old were you here?
I was between the ages of 15 and 16, but it really got to me at age 16. I had done my CXC subjects, applied to go to sixth form at Manchester High. When my mother went in to speak to the principal and came back out, she had this look of anger and embarrassment and sadness on her face.
Disappointment.
Yeah, and she said to me, the principal said that even though you have the grades, you meet the requirement, your behavior is just not good enough for you to be here. And later on, she told the story over the phone, and I heard it. There was a lot more that the principal had said. I mean, pretty much laughing at her for thinking that her daughter could come to FEME sixth form. And I said, I can't make this happen to my mother again. And from that point on, I made a very simple promise, you know. I said, the next time my mother come to any school for me, she must be in an audience clapping, because I get some award or some prize or something. And I insisted that I wouldn't get in any trouble that would warrant her to come. But I would do the things that would be identified as excellent, so my mother can come clap for her daughter. Yeah. And I've been able to do that ever since. Since that happened to me at the end of fifth form, my mother has never had to come to school because of Krystal being in trouble. It's the complete opposite.
Your mother is a lovely parent, whether she knew that, because one of the strategies I use for my children is disappointment. I don't hit my kids, but my son has this thing where he watches these videos on YouTube that I tell him not to watch, and I saw him watching them, and I just became disappointed, and he started crying, because disappointment is punishment.
Yes.
Especially when you look up to your kids. So kudos to your mother for that. That helps.
Yes.
Do you still have old friends?
I don't. When you say old, you're thinking from like high school?
Wherever, childhood.
No. I mean, there are people who I know from high school. I we still talk across social media, but not WhatsApp. So, you know, WhatsApp is a more intimate space than social media. Yeah. So we link, but it's not a friendship. You know, if they're coming in from overseas and they're here for like a week, we link up and have drinks and so. But my strong friendships, and I think built on real character, when I was becoming the right kind of human being to even be a friend to somebody, really started when I was at university. So I have one friend for 10 years. I think next September makes it 10 years since we've been best friends. I never thought I'd have a relationship like that for a decade. So I have that one friend that for a decade we've really just been there for each other. And then stronger friendships. But as I said, those were really formed coming off of the university experience. You know, living on hall and sharing a room.
Tell me about that university experience.
So I went to the University
of
the West
Indies. Which hall were you on?
Taylor Hall, of course. There's only one hall on the... Well, two. Taylor Hall and Assembly Hall.
Which college was this? Which university?
University of the West Indies, Mona. Because there's 3 campuses across the Caribbean. But I was at the Jamaica one. And while I was living in Taylor Hall, I was on Block E, Excellencia. And how it works is that girls are roomed together. It's a co-ed hall, but males get their own rooms and females share rooms. So I had a roommate, and the space was a communal space. So it's shared bathroom, shared kitchen, shared common areas. So you were forced to interact.
Isn't that a little prejudice going on there? Where
A lot of
females,
prejudice.
You should take on that as
a lot of prejudice.
As a campaign.
Right?
How are the men able to get their own rooms?
Exactly.
And females share?
No, I think that comes down to those very strong sentiments we have about sexuality in Jamaica. The idea is I can manage the idea of two girls living in a room and probably being intimate. You know, that's not offensive to me. You know, a girl seeing another girl's breasts, that's fine. But a man must not see a, you understand? So exactly. So we can't make it that you and the man have to change in the same room.
That's a good point.
So
and maybe it's a money issue too.
Well, it's the same price.
It's the same price.
Yeah.
So then it's really a gender issue.
It is gender.
And a sexuality issue.
It is. I tell you, it really is. And when you ask them about it, the men are the first to defend why them have them own a room. But somehow when we make the case for the same reason, they say, well, you can apply to live out front. That's what they call the flats. They have a limited number where girls are able to live on there. Or maybe 10, 15 rooms are out there. So that communal living encouraged the formation of bonds on the hall. And I think had we been in our single rooms, it would have been much more difficult for us as women to have relationships, because the social space makes it easier for you to compete. But when you're waking up and seeing another person with them fresh bed face, right? It brings us to a space of vulnerability among each other. Seeing somebody stress out while them sitting over in a corner trying to study for an exam, hearing them on the phone while them going through something with them boyfriend or their mother or their father, it builds up a lot of compassion because we're so close to each other. You know, being able to walk in the room and we can see who have food and who don't have food. So I know I must give you some of my cornflakes in the morning.
Something the men miss.
Something the men would have missed too. Yeah. And I mean, while they did have their domino football playing experience, again, those things are exercises in masculinity. But what we had to see was vulnerability. You know, being in a room and the bed next to yours, the girl is having cramps and she's bawling, you have to go get her a pill. So it forced us to care because we had to see each other being vulnerable.
And what did you study in university, first of all?
I did a double major in international relations, political science, and then a minor in African diaspora studies.
So how you got into media?
You know, this was from a friend who knew me in high school. Her name is Debbie. I don't know if you remember Debbie, who used to do, what was that? It was Free With Choice. Debbie Debs was her name on TV. And she used to do like a Vox Pop segment of Free With Choice when it just came out. Yeah. So she was working with that team, OCM Productions, and one of the members on OCM staff was my current producer, Fania Mings. And she was just there while he was saying, boy, you know, I have a host for a TV show, but I really want to switch it up because I'm looking for a different kind of personality. Debbie, you know anybody? And Debbie sent me a message on Facebook to say, look here, audition is happening X and X date, X and X time. Come out because I think you would do well at the audition. I said, all right. You know, I went there. The producer gave me the script. Then he said, all right, come in and deliver the lines. And I left the paper on the chair. So he says, oh, you left the paper? I said, no, man, I know it. He said, you know it? I said, yes. And he looked at me like, there's no way you know that in 5 minutes. Puts me in front of the camera, mics me, says action. I deliver the lines, although I give it to him verbatim, but I deliver it as though it's my conversation I'm having. And when he finished, I said, do you want me to do it again? How did it go? Was I looking at the camera? And he says, it was perfect. We'll finish the auditions and give you a call if you make it. And I made it. And then that's just been it. And people always ask me the question, did you study in media? Where'd you get your practice? Drama. From doing theatre arts in school, I got comfortable on stage.
You did theatre in high school?
Yeah, I did it at CSEC, and I actually got the highest grade in the island when I did it.
Who was your teacher?
Miss Juliet Kalai.
Hi, Miss Juliet Kalai.
Man, she's fantastic.
I taught theatre arts for 10 years.
She's retired. Where? Which school?
At Merle Grove.
Look at me interviewing you. I passed my Merle Grove when I did GSAT, you know?
Yeah, but you went to...
Mommy had to move me.
I'm happy you got to Merle Grove.
So wait, what year were you? What year were you at Merle Grove?
I taught at Merle Grove from 05 to 2015. 10 years.
Okay. When I was at Merle Grove, the theatre teacher there was Miss Minto. I've forgotten her first name, but through her I won my first medal at JCDC.
Yeah, I did a lot of that.
Cheryl Minto, yeah.
I, like you, one day I was driving to work and I heard Barry Salmon playing, I think I got a call.
Oh, yes.
And I was in traffic and I said to myself, there's no way I could spend the rest of my life driving in traffic. This is a lot of my time. And I decided then that I'm going to make, I think it was like probably 2012 or 2013, but I made a 2-year plan to exit.
Okay.
And before the 2 years happened, I was like,
old.
hi, I'll help you, but you
Bye.
can't pay me. Let's go.
Kudos to you.
I made that transition, which is why I started relate to your story pretty well. So you did media. Tell us about that journey in media. Tell us the fun parts. What's good, what's bad about media in Jamaica, according to your experience.
So let's start with the bad parts. The landscape is so small that it takes very little effort for you to become a household name. You know, we have really 2 free-to-air stations, one more popular than the other. And where I had my program was on the popular station, the more popular station.
You can call the name.
Oh, okay, so there was TVJ. And before you knew it, people were calling to me on the street. And, you know, when you're doing the thing, you don't feel like a celebrity doing it.
Exactly.
You're doing
working.
your job, right?
Yeah.
And then it comes on and you watch it and your auntie watch it and you laugh at yourself and then you're gone by your business. And you're sitting on a bus, because at the time I didn't even drive. You know, I'm at the bus stop and people driving by and calling to me, and I'm not sure if I know them from high school or what. And, you know, it gets awkward for you, because you're saying hi to people that you're not sure if you should know them, but you don't want to be rude. So it gets overwhelming very quickly. And then once you're in, you're in. And part of the challenge is learning how to manage all the opportunities that come because you're a very public space, and the problems and judgment and unreasonable standards that people will have of you. Like, for instance,
you don't have of yourself.
I don't have that of myself. Like, some days my belly going to look big. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to bloat and I'm fine. I still think I'm hot. But somebody else sees and goes, oh my God, she eat too much food. Jesus, she can't go to the gym. And you're wondering, when did I give away the right to put on weight? You know? So those are the real challenges that I face. Those expectations that come because in people's minds, you are a celebrity.
Not only that, you're in their bedrooms, you're in their space, so they know you.
They know you, and their children know you, and you become an automatic role model. And you can't tell people that, well, that wasn't my intention to be a role model. It is what it is, and you have to accept it comes to the territory. The other challenge is that the pay sucks. The pay absolutely sucks. There's not enough support for local producers and program developers who are independent, as there would be in the USA. So, for instance, the model overseas is that if you build a show and you bring it to a network, they pay you, right? It's not the same here. You build a show, you bring it to a network,
you have to pay
them. And it means that you can't build wealth in the way that it would happen in the US. So a popular television show on a popular station usually means you can drive a Ferrari. That's not what it means in Jamaica. You're probably able to pay off a couple bills earlier than you thought, but it's not a wealth building platform. And I think we miss a lot of opportunities as a cultural center to really generate a lot of money.
How do you think we might change that?
Well, first, I think the rule has to change about how local producers and their content is treated. Even if you're not going to pay them, don't charge them like you think they have a Supreme Ventures behind them, where the money's just rolling in every day. Allow them the platform to build out a product, help them to generate sponsors, perhaps give them some kind of co-pay on the cost to air it, so that they can build a proper brand for export. If you want, you can say that you have half stakes in the thing because you gave them free use of your platform. But I think the way we look at the local producers has to change. But it really has to happen.
Do you think it's a
from
creativity
production.
thing? The people who run these stations are not creators, they're more administrators, so they don't understand the mind of a creator and the struggles.
I think, well, no, because I've seen them create great products, but I think the emphasis is on the generation of profit and not so much the building of a local industry. And that mandate perhaps has to come from government. Maybe the Broadcasting Commission has to mandate that within X amount of time we need 80% of programs to be local.
JIS.
Right. And force it to get into that place. Offer some kind of tax rebate to corporate companies who give sponsorship to locally produced
I'm holding you
programs.
to that whenever you become a government minister.
Oh God, then maybe they give me information.
This is important. I actually suggested, and I've been in many government meetings regarding this, with all the stakeholders from the TV stations, the creators, Jampro, everybody. And it's a bunch of excuses. about what should or should not happen on both sides, because I think in large part the administrators don't understand the times. The terrestrial TV and radio will die if they don't open up to content makers, because we're recording right now on a podcast that's going to go far and wide to a bigger audience than any local TV or radio station.
Yeah.
Every artist, Beenie Man has more followers than every TV and radio station in Jamaica. At any given time when he press send,
more people
than who would hear his song on the radio see the song, because only IRFM has a big amount of persons listening. Now, if they don't incorporate the people who are making the content and also the superstars, they'll just die. They'll just die out, because that's where radio is going.
But I didn't get to tell you about the benefits now.
Yes, tell me that.
For media. It gives you a platform, a very unique platform to build a brand for yourself. Because once you have the eyes of the people on you, you get to craft your own messaging to speak directly to them.
Yes.
And create a version of you that you can live up to, because that's what happened to me in media. The minute I became a role model, I realized that my personal decisions had to change. So even though I had made a shift in high school, I'm in my early 20s, still wanting my freedom, whatever one I look on my family, supposed to do my one, do I want to say, right? Yeah. Being seen now in a more respectful lens, it helped to raise my own standards of myself. So I was able to use media to grow personally. People are watching you. What is your responsibility to them gonna be?
Because that's true. Transparency for anything, even politicians, everybody. Once the light is on you,
yeah, man, you have to step
you
up
immediately, everybody's seeing your problems and your virtues. No,
yes.
if you're allowed the shadow of it, then you can make your mistakes in private. But and that's why I believe in transparency, because transparency makes all of us better. We have to rise, because we don't want to live in shame. We don't want to live in the guilt of people seeing us in any way. So we rise. So that's a good thing. So big up to Jamaica media for doing that.
Amen.
To the extent that they do. Politics. You made a switch, corporate to politics. How did that switch happen? Before you answer that, what's your personal politics?
Okay, so in Krystal's ideal world, I live in a country that is built on the very core values of socialism, which is that you take from people as much as they can give reasonably. So if a man can give more, you take more. If a man can't give any, you take none. And give to others according to what they need. So if you have all your assets and your children are well off, you won't get access to certain things. Yes, you're going to have to contribute to it, but you won't get access to it because you don't need it. There's an entire population of 1 million people who have nothing, and we want to bring them up to a reasonable standard of living so they can feel the dignity of being a human being.
When the war happened, that kind of politics was
this is my ideal world, right? The ideal
Berlin
world.
Wall came down, the USSR came down.
Exactly. So
the China Wall is still up.
No, but the interesting thing is that the countries whose democracies we celebrate have mixed in those principles of socialism with a democratic system. So a lot of the countries in Europe, like Sweden and Denmark and Norway that we talk about, are built on principles of socialism, but they allow the democracy to approve those decisions. So we as a people will choose that this is what we want it to be, as opposed to the government saying, "I saw it, I go, get in line." So I appreciate that the best run countries with the highest standards of living are those that put a lot of emphasis on social parity, bringing up those who don't have, so that we don't have to go to war for each other's property. But it's also about
getting people to make the most of themselves, because if you're not making the most of yourself, you become a burden to those who are making the most of themselves.
So education, for instance, making sure people have access to education and training inevitably means that I want to be a producer. I want to carry my weight in society because I'm now capable. You gave me the right tools, I can become a builder and not just a resident in the country. So I had to find or choose a political party that aligned closest to those values. And while we talk a lot about both parties being more centrist now, so we're trying to mix each model to see what the best thing we can get out of it, the fundamentals of a People's National Party is really democratic socialism. There's a statement that somebody made that to an extent, up until the early 2000s, it would have been true that when the PNP...
Those fundamentals started in the 70s, though. Because before that, with Norman Manley, I've seen a video of him downtown in the waterfront war, as I call it, where Norman Manley was saying governments must borrow money that generation have to pay for.
Well, yeah.
And he said this.
Yeah. Michael had to change his politics after a while. But certainly when he entered, his idea was that the state could centralize all the activities and take care of its own. And then it turned out not to be so. But do you think we would have been better off if that policy was allowed to flourish? I think so, within the confines of a democratic process. So as opposed to a prime minister saying this is where we're going, the prime minister says, do you want us to go this way? Here are the things we're going to have to do. Let me know what you want to do. And absent that permission from the people, it was very easy to convince them that this was a bad move. And, especially Cuba right beside us doing something a little bit too similar. Do you want to end up like Cuba? Oh, no, you don't. So it created a lot of fear before there was understanding of what it meant. And I think absent that word democratic, socialism starts to sound like poison. But the countries today have shown that where you allow democracy to run inside socialism, it benefits everybody. But what I had wanted to share was the idea that the party I support, were they to make a mistake, it is made in the interest of people, versus the opposing party, if they make a mistake, it's in the interest of businesses. And I was able to watch that and see that it was true. So it's not that nobody makes any mistakes, but the reason a mistake is made, again, up to the early 2000s, because now we're looking a little bit too similar, you could see where one was really trying to do more for the have-nots and made an error in that pursuit, versus one trying to build an economy and strengthen business minds.
Economics.
Right.
Yeah.
And
which is a philosophical thing that it's always who have the most guns win historically in any society. One who is able to dominate either through force or culture, that's the one that always wins. But your role now in politics as a youth, and I call you youth because you are from that critical age group that's influential in winning the next general election, the 25 to 35s. We are the powerful. We are the influencers. We're the articulate. We have the most numbers, according to the EOJ, to win or not win the election. What's your role, and why did you enter to actively participate in this process of electing or
well, let me tell you.
Mobilizing people.
Let me tell you what I think my role is, and then that explains why I'm inside. Because I know that youth have the power to change the politics. What you don't want is that you end up just changing governments. The politics doesn't change unless you have those change makers inside those political parties. So the voter on their own, no matter how much they say, we don't but I want you go away, we want you now. Without having those change makers on the inside of the system, you end up just repeating the same issues that you're having over and over again. So while I push for youth on the outside to knock it down, I want to be on the inside to say when it's knocked down, I'm also here to help you rebuild it. And I'm afraid of any system that tells youth that the core role that they have is to vote and help to change political parties. The role is a pre-election role where you help to set that agenda. It is an election role where you help to choose your leaders. And it's a post-election role where you insist on accountability. And I think more and more today we're seeing that insistence on accountability for youth, that post-Obama era where you know what a transformational leader looks, sounds, and works like. So we want that from ours once they're in. What we haven't figured out yet as youth is how to organize in the beginning to say, this is what we want. And if you don't give me these things, it's on this basis that we're going to change our vote. But to this day, I don't think any government is clear on what youth want, except maybe to be able to access their NHT.
Because they're not listening. They're probably not listening.
Yeah. And I think youth have to find very clear and succinct ways of expressing that. So what is your challenge? Okay, you want to be able to pay back SLB, but what is the larger issue? Access to tertiary education in a system that allows me to not have to give up comfort or give up food in order to learn. So you come with those ideas on how that can happen. But my challenge is that youth aren't properly organized in a mass sense for us to say, in a way teachers do it. Like teachers say, well, if you don't do this for the teachers will not vote. we don't have that kind of setup for young
Maybe
people.
what's happening with youth also is youth don't really care for the systems that exist. First of all, I know that personally. They don't care for the system. So even school itself, youth view it with a thin spoon, where they just want to use it as a tool. But more and more youth are becoming more conscious that they don't need school to access the points that they want in life.
Yeah.
So maybe even the whole idea of SLB and paying for college, youth don't even want to participate in that. And those that do, because they already have preconceived notion that this is a scam and this is foolishness, when they do, it don't work for them because they're not planning for it. It's kind of like a man having a baby. He's not planning for the baby. He was just planning for the vagina. That's his feeling. He wants that. But then baby come, he's like, oh, snap.
You're going to be hungry? You need food?
Yeah, like, why are you crying?
You're right.
You know, so maybe to attack the youth issue, you have to go far and find out, where is he? What is he thinking about? What's his need? Because now you have a man can create a YouTube channel and make 40,000 US a month from children playing with Play-Doh. This is happening.
That's what the slime is. It
Yeah.
the slime thing? I found out about
I
that.
have,
As well.
like,
What is
hundreds of
that?
millions of views, getting
Munching
crazy money
slime.
per year. So youth finding different ways. So if in making the politics work for youth, we can stretch it out. Instead of seeing, like media, you say, is a small landscape. Stretch it out. Podcasts.
Yeah.
Stretch it out to other mediums and modes of viewing. I do a show called World Music Views on TVJ every week, where I highlight what youth really are watching. Now, it's a proper zeitgeist of where the music is every week. Like, I could tell who's buzzing more than the other charts are showing, which are the traditional Billboard charts and whatever.
Exactly.
Because youth don't care for that.
Even if
Youth
we're not
tapping
buying
into
music, we're
YouTube.
consuming, yeah.
Yeah. So if an artist want to know who is listening to his music, find out who listening to your stuff on YouTube. So that's, youth are just breaking down the old traditional forms and coming with their own thing. So if as a youth advocate, I believe everybody, the role that we have to play is to first understand where youth is. Because if you try to set systems for where youth is not, it's
You're
like
gonna
you're walking
fail.
around them and saying, how come I don't see you? Because they're over here and they're not organized, as you rightfully say.
So you
They're
have
in a
to
whole different paradigm. So in your role, I want you to talk about your 5-year goal in politics.
Okay, so 5 years would take me to where? I'm in
2023.
Okay. In 2023...
That's 3 years after the next election, I believe.
Yeah, so in 2023, I expect to see a 2021 election that has youth as a massive force in the communities, you know, not necessarily campaigning for any political party, but campaigning on their issues and explaining why somebody needs to see this issue as important. If your MP not talk about that issue, you must back up your MP and chat to them about it. Because I realize that a lot of parents, grandparents are expecting these educated grandchildren that you have to be leading that conversation on what happens next. So I imagine a youth population that is so organized. Maybe we're going to organize at the police youth club level or at the Girls Guide and 4-H, well, maybe 4-H club is too far down the wrong, but at a teen to young adult. You have adults. Okay, right. So at those levels where we're functioning in our communities and we have very community-centric ideas on how we're going to solve our problems, I want to see youth leading that. So the next government that is constituted does so with a clear mandate from the teachers, from the police, from the Jamaica Manufacturers Association, but also from young people. So we can, when we insist on accountability, it's not just who fixed the most pothole and who make the most road and who built the biggest building. It's who helped to move the meter on these particular issues that affect young people. I'm also seeing a space where we have maybe, well, right now the only example I have is Barack Obama, right? So I'm going to use him. But we have a Barack Obama style consultation on issues. So before you do something, our voice is in it. One of the challenges I'm finding now is that the thing happens and then somebody is trying to PR it. There is no real consultation to ask me if I think this is a good idea, what we can do at the outset to build it up for young people. And as you say, get us on the inside. It's, we've built it. Come look at how pretty the house is. And when you ask questions about why did you use this kind of cement and that color paint, it's like, oh, you're majoring in the minor.
That was pretty.
You know, that was a pretty, look here, look how much room we have. And sort of undermines the input that youth could make in
Which has been
creating
happening. That's the old style of
Absolutely, absolutely.
So what role do you, Krystal, will play in taking us there?
The primary role I've given myself a mandate is to move beyond recruiting young people for a political youth organization, but rather to train them on how to create their own organizations and manage them well. How to allow your school feeding initiative in Maxfield Avenue to become an advocacy machine on the issues of poverty and homelessness. How you can see yourself in solving a small problem as part of a bigger problem solving machine and to tap into it. How to get funding for the work that you're doing. How to get recognized. How to pull in youth and create a social enterprise out of those activities. So youth can feel powerful. One of the things that people often talk about is the empowerment of youth. And when they say empowered, sometimes it doesn't mean gear work. Sometimes they mean you get to sit on a board or you can be an advisor to somebody. But when somebody feels powerful, it encourages them to take action and insist on certain things being done and not done. So I want youth to become that sort of vanguard for the future that they want to have for themselves. Because I've heard people say the future is now, but in the mind of a young person, their future is like 10 and 15 years from where they are, but they're not working to build the Jamaica that they want to see 10 years from now.
Because they used to tell us that youth are the future. Remember that?
Yeah,
They used
yeah.
to like, oh, youth are what kind of responsibility.
So them have to feel like them are build it now. And I don't get that sense from youth. I get the sense that we're wait upon them Monday for build the thing. And when they not build it right, they shouldn't put the man over there, if you do 2 stories to that 3 story,
Which is a self-esteem thing.
Yeah.
Where other people must carry us and then we fit it in.
Exactly.
So, what's your idea of leadership, generally?
It's 2 things. It's service and it's results.
I love that. Jesus was a leader.
Yeah, service and it's
He's
results.
always serving.
Serving and results. And you have to be able to measure your results too. So when somebody says you were here as a leader, what did that mean? Does it mean that 3,000 less people are homeless and 1,000 less people are hungry and 100,000 more people are alive and well? What results are there to show that you actually led? Because you can participate, and that means you are responsible for changing nothing. I'm a participant. And so if it gets better, oh well. If it not get better, oh well. But I was there. I did something. If you're leading, you have to be responsible for making changes and improving people's lives.
So how do you see Jamaica right now in the leadership sphere?
Jamaica stressed me out.
Religious leaders, all the leaders. And we're just going to talk. Let's talk about politics first and then church. Let's do church first. Let's do church. In the religious, in the clergy sector, do you think the church is playing an active role in shaping how people see themselves and how people respond and how people live?
They continue to, and I think in a country where we've accepted that the church must have a major say in how policies are crafted and a role to play in how children are raised, they will continue to influence how I see myself as a woman and how I see myself as a woman in relation to a man and what is good and bad in a marriage and what is right
Even
to raise a
with
child.
Gina Jennings saying
Exactly.
that women with makeup are prostitutes and whores.
Exactly. And the fact that there's a population of women who sat down, heard that message and thought it was okay. It means that they give over a lot of their power to be intuitive, a lot of their cognitive reasoning they hand over to a spiritual leader. In my mind, a spiritual leader, whichever religion you're in, if you're leading people towards some kind of spiritual nirvana, it must be that you're carrying them. You're carrying them, which means you allow yourself to be a vehicle for them to travel along a particular path. What I find is that the pastor wants to tell you where to go. The pastor wants to tell you where your destination is, as opposed to allowing you to find that fulfillment on your own. And what we have to accept is that the more peaceful religions, right, are the ones that say, you have the answer, just let me help you unearth it. Yeah. Versus, see the answer here, and una come here, so, and the devil send them, make we kill them. You'll realize the difference with what those spiritual teachers do and say. And
which is the same thing happening in politics.
Exactly. Exactly.
Us against them.
Exactly.
Let's talk about politics. Do you think our political leaders, Asta Black, who's the president of the NDM?
I don't know.
So it's Asta Black from the Rasta movement, NDM president, most honorable and Jonas, Dr. Peter Phillips. Out of all those leaders who will be on the ballot ticket, and whoever else goes up as an independent, who you think is best suitable to run Jamaica?
Oh, Peter Phillips. And you know why?
Why? Tell me why.
He's proven it.
How?
He's done it already. So in the early 2000s, when he was Minister of National Security, Jamaica almost had a coke problem and didn't, because of his own policing and transshipment strategies to get those coke fiends out of the country. He did things
and you
that
think
the
they're
US...
gone?
No. I'm saying we could have had a coke problem.
Oh,
we could have had a
people...
Venezuela, Colombia coke problem because of the same Colombians who were using us as a transshipment hub, and he managed to stem that. Now, it doesn't mean that we don't have coke here, but I've never seen coke. I have no idea what cocaine looks like, and that's because
so you think is his policy or a policy from the US?
Well, it was actually his, and I've done some reading on it because I've never seen cocaine, and I always ask people. For instance, they laugh at me. I say, "Jamaican really take coke? I never see it yet," and they laugh at me, and I say, "Yes, Krystal, they're Jamaicans here."
But cocaine is not a problem for people to abuse. Cocaine abuse is not a thing here because we have
and
other
that's
drugs.
Why. That's why. So, but let me answer why I credit him with that, because internationally he has been credited with stopping that. So if you look at press releases and reviews, either it is from embassy officials of the US who are here, New York Times write-ups, Washington Post write-ups, they credit him with doing something that is almost impossible for countries who have been in our position, which is to prevent Colombians from using your shores to transport with the guns and all of that.
That's what I'm saying. That can't be his MO, because culturally we don't care for the man who sells drugs in Jamaica is revered as the businessman. It happens. No, we don't respect people who take drugs in Jamaica, but I'm talking about leading Jamaicans. You know.
So, no, but that's why I'm breaking it down, because he's never been prime minister, but he's been a minister of. So I've seen his results in the Ministry of National Security. I've seen his results as a minister of transport. We credit him with the Jamaica Urban Transit Company and that model that we have now. When I was in high school, children don't sit down in a bus. You're the last person to go in there for fight and board going. And then there was JUTC. And then people formed lines. And then your bus would come at 10 or maybe 10:15. That kind of system in the urban center meant a lot, especially for me who live in Portmore. So I saw, again, his hand in revolutionizing an urban transit system that was absent.
This was the 90s?
2000s. Late 90s, early 2000s.
Well, we're talking about 2018.
Right. So we're looking now at 2015, which is the last time... pre-2016, before the last election, when he served as Minister of Finance. Again, internationally lauded for his role in rescuing the Jamaican economy, coming out of that 2010 Tivoli Gardens incursion and failing about 3 consecutive IMF tests under the former minister. He came in at a time when we had no confidence internationally, rebuilt our economic system, and regained investor confidence so that the economy could start growing, albeit incrementally. But every portfolio that he has been given, he leads and makes changes that you can measure. So when I look at who is fit to lead the country, I'm looking at the person who has served and has delivered results. So have you seen that from
Do you
from
think the youth, the 25 to 35 demographic, do you think what you just said, he managed to translate that to that demographic?
No.
And why? And how you think he might?
If you're not a student of politics, you wouldn't know it. So I only know it because I'm looking at policy and I'm comparing statistics. It's the job now of that person who has that kind of record where nobody never call your name in a corruption yet, and you've been in this system for so long, to show people what you have done and to allow them to build confidence that you can do it again, as Beanie said. We have not been able to translate that, and I think it has a mix. It's more so the persona of who Dr. Peter Phillips is. You've never seen him tout his horn. First politician in Jamaica to be given Man of the Year by the Gleaner. Unheard of. And then since then we've seen it happen for others. But he doesn't speak about himself in that way. And it's a mix of humility, but also poor PR.
Which humility is not a part of this generation's MO.
It's not. It's not.
It's
you have to be
in
in people's faces, and you have to convince them, and you need a photo, and you need a video, and you need this, and you need that. And in the absence of that, people will assume, because they say it this way: if you're not on social media, you don't exist. But I'll go a little bit further. If on social media I still can't tell who you are, you don't exist. And so it's important that we craft a personality and messaging that explains to people why we support him and why we think he is best equipped to do
Which is branding.
to do the job. Right.
Branding. Barack Obama, in his book, I don't know if you've ever read Audacity of Hope.
Not in full.
You should read it. Very good book. You should read it tonight.
Okay.
I recommend you read it. It's a quick read because it's a small book. Read it tonight. There's a chapter where he spoke about how he got to the Democratic ticket.
Convention. Okay.
He got to the convention the year before as a moneyless person, having problems with his wife and all kinds of things. And the man in Bridgen got a convention. And he couldn't even get in because I think to get inside, he had to have something like a $30,000, which he said he didn't have. So his friend had him on the outskirts just walking and waltzing. The following year, he said he observed everything though. He said the following year, they invited him to give a speech because he kept working, he kept organizing people, he kept being on the grassroots. And he went and he gave the speech. And on that night, everybody knew him after that night. And that's how he got in and then became the suave Barack Obama. His personality didn't change. It was always him, always the humble youth, always. The only difference was he got power. Power that other people gave him, by the way, because he still...
It wasn't money, the power.
Himself.
Yeah.
And then you can hear that because the way he speaks about Michelle, like Michelle can put him down. Like Michelle said to him, if you run again, I'm done. And he's like, all right. This was when, because he had lost several elections, you know.
Okay, at the state level?
Yeah.
Okay.
And Michelle said, you don't win this, I'm done. Like, you can go pursue it because I have my law degree. I'm going to get this money. You can do what you want to do. And you get a sense that he was always his personal brand. Persons just spoke about it.
Yeah.
So maybe I'm saying Dr. Phillips and anybody else who's in politics should lend themselves to just opening the curtain on just who you are.
Absolutely.
Just open the curtain. It's not you being anything different from yourself. Just say,
let people
this
see
is
you.
me.
With the flaws, everything.
You know,
just let
and
them
it's
see.
always interesting. I always joke about this. The reason why Andrew almost won was the night he was in Half a Tree and he brought his mom, his wife, and everybody on stage. And his mother started crying. I said, Jamaica love when mother ball. Like they resonated
we love
with that.
Good family portrait.
Yeah.
It tells us that you're together.
Yeah.
It tells us that you have your head screw on,
Of
you
course.
have support.
We love women, which is why the Honorable Portia Simpson won before. But we love women who, like, we love the next woman. So if you run, I think if you decide to run eventually, and because you're already out there and you give them your honest self, like a Barack would do, I think Jamaica would. And then you bring your mother on stage and everybody start about. I'm kidding, but you know,
I get you.
It's just opening up the curtain and seeing.
They want to see the full picture. You know, gone are the days where a sneaky politician because they're mysterious.
Not now. This is the age of information.
And as you said, transparency is important as part of the transparency.
And it makes us better.
And you know what the challenge is too? If the only people who speak about the worthiness of Dr. Phillips are PNP people, it doesn't convey the same kind of message. So you're right.
Because he already has those people.
Yeah.
Other
people need to
He
start
doesn't need to
telling the story.
convince people who are PNP to be PNP.
Yeah.
But a big part of our politics plays on perception. And that perception is even more important now.
And the last thing I want to say on it is the social factor that people want to associate with the thing that is already affirmed as cool.
Yes.
And it's affirmed as cool that, you know, Jamaica has this young prime minister.
Yes.
So that's the cool
That's the
thing.
narrative that was played on and went with.
So who wants to abandon the thing that everybody thinks is cool for something that we've yet to fully unpack and understand?
I remember we're coming out of years of politicians using words like fundamental. I didn't know what fundamental was until I went to college. I'm telling you the truth.
Fundamentally speaking.
Fundamentally speaking. Everybody was fundamental for like a good 20 years. So now, to talk to them, you need simple language. You need to talk on their level. You need to dress like them. You need to look like them. You need to roll up your sleeves and be cool with that. Be very comfortable. You need to go dance with them.
Yeah.
Because they have power now. It's not like one time we can say this a Baka wall music or Baka wall culture.
I'm in charge and you follow.
The so-called bucket wall culture is now pop culture. It's now infiltrating the world. So that needs to happen. And I'm playing a role, and that's why I'm speaking in your interview, because I really want people to start thinking higher. That's why I did this podcast, because I have something to say. I want to have the conversations around these things and see how we can flesh them out, because we can't keep having the same conversation. We can't keep doing the same thing. But
You're right.
Personally, this is where we're going to end. Your relationship with Be The Man.
Okay.
It's a public relationship. It's easy to be in the shadows of such a dominant figure. Plus, I know Be The Man. He's heavy. Like,
Yeah.
Be The Man is the guy who run on stage in front of Sizzler and take the mic. And Sizzler is a powerful person, you know?
Yes,
so
yes,
so
yes.
managing that relationship, how do you manage to not stay in the shadows of Be The Man and chart your own course, make your own brand, and you're a bona fide brand of your own? So what do you recommend to other women who might be in situations with other powerful men?
So if you're not there yet, you build your brand, and that way you come into the space with a known character, so people can align you with a particular thing and say, oh, that's her thing, that's the girl from there. It would have happened with a Kim Kardashian, you know, she is her own thing and her own person. So when you get Kim and Kanye, she doesn't get lost in his own awesomeness. But if you're already there,
I love when you say awesomeness. I read Kanye West.
no, he's amazing. He's
Have you listened to the album?
I haven't, but guess
You
what?
should.
After that wax slavery comment, it was
listen to the
trending
album.
everywhere.
Listen to the album.
His album was trending everywhere. I think Jamaica was a country that didn't make the list because we weren't listening. But I mean, he's a master at what he does, and he's an artist. And I think with artists, you must expect the unconventional. They're not great unless they're doing something unconventional. But if you're already in a relationship with somebody who has that strong brand and presence and authority in the public space, make sure that they're not afraid of giving you space to shine. And what I find with Moses is that he's not offended or feel in any way threatened if he goes out somewhere and people call to me and don't call to him. It's not a thing where I'm saying, oh, but you get bigger than me. You know, it's, oh, am I, oh man, that, yeah, people know, yeah, And he's proud of it. He's proud that he can go somewhere and people talk to him about seeing me as a role model and wanting to meet me and asking when me I go come and where Krystal there. It helps to validate his own choice in a partner. It says that I see the value in her, and it's just so awesome that the world sees it too and wants to celebrate it. So we're not competing. And what's important too is that it might not work that you're in the same field. So if I were to probably decide that I want to be an entertainer, it probably wouldn't work, right? Because I'm going to start saying, so, oh, you get more booking than me, right? Oh, me now.
And that was episode 20 of the JR podcast. Thank you for tuning in. Please remember to subscribe and share and leave a review on iTunes, on Anchor, wherever you listen. Thank you so much. My name is Donovan Watkins, and this has been the JR podcast. Have a great day.